This is our model for Ben, the shortest haircut in the Mathematic collection. Begin the haircut with a standard horseshoe-shaped parting, separating the top half of the head from the bottom. This is the first step in the 5 steps of the men's work method. Establish the basic head shape. Step 2 of the men's work method, by creating a high taper from the bottom of Zone 1 to above the widest area of the head. At the center of Zone 2, angle the comb dramatically away from the head, leaving a longer length at the top of the panel. Refine the panel with fanning over comb. Mimic the original comb angles. Square in Zone 1 to the center of Zone 2. Redefine the low taper to have a strong, exaggerated shape. Work the length down so there is a subtle amount of scalp exposure below the low taper. The comb will most likely anchor to the head in Zone 1. Angle the base of the comb along the hairline behind the ear. After each cut across the comb, adjust the comb to move gradually toward the typical position in which the teeth are parallel to the panel. Then follow the guide, moving from a high taper to a low taper. The comb should be flatter against the head, with the teeth pointing straight up or at a slight graduated angle, until you reach the center of Zone 2. The angle of the comb changes dramatically in Zone 2, with the teeth pointing away from the head. Be careful not to use too much tension against the spine of the comb. Refine the change of the taper with fanning over comb. The comb and clipper will pivot together in this concentrated area. Zone 1 expands as you reach the back of the head. Mimic the angle of the comb to expand to the entire zone, taking many passes with the clipper along the comb. Change the angle of the comb in Zone 2 to create the low taper. Keep a visual balance of this dramatic weight buildup as it wraps around the head. This change begins at the center of Zone 2, above the occipital region. Be aware of the head shape when reaching the back of the head. It is important not to indent into the head shape above the occipital bone. Be mindful of this as you create the high taper from Zone 1 into Zone 2. The best result is with a model that does not have a protruding occipital region. Refine the panels with fanning over comb to blend away any cutting lines or dark areas. Use greater tension against the head along the hairline. When you reach the occipital bone, ease up on the tension of the comb if anchored against the head. This will ensure a consistency in scalp exposure. The head has indentations and protrusions in this area. The greater the scalp exposure, the greater the chance for inconsistencies. Natural indentations may exist. Cut across the comb for quick bulk removal and immediate weight placement. The guide exists at the side of the comb. Dust the ends of the hair to remove any inconsistencies in the panel. Hold the comb in a C shape. This position allows you to pivot the comb with your fingers, which is necessary for the entire shape, as well as the special attention required when changing the angle of the comb. The dramatic aspects of Ben are derived by an effective angle of graduation in unique placement in Zone 2. Fluid cutting skills help keep a high quality to an aggressive shape. Special attention is required around the entire hairline. Each hairline offers unique densities and growth patterns. Always keep a tighter cutting tension around the very bottom of the hairline, easing off the head to suspension as you work up the panel. Keep in mind the original shape at the opposite side of the head. Although a guide exists in the previous section, visual balance is the final goal. Cut the hair for subtle scalp exposure up to the low taper created in Zone 2. Not all hairlines and growth directions will be equal from side to side. Enter opposite the hair growth and keep cutting angles close and tensions greater to the hairline. Work the sideburn into a faded scalp exposed result, from complete scalp exposure into the internal shape. The sideburn should result in a classic outline shape at the center to top of the ear. Review the low taper in Zone 2, adding fanning to strengthen and refine the shape. The taper should graduate away from the head with a consistent line within the silhouette. Prepare for the third step of the men's work method, the transition, by creating a parting at the center of the top of the head. Take a vertical part behind the ear and cut a vertical high facet transition. Find the facet angle at the top of Zone 3 and elevate the hair to achieve that cutting angle. Use the previously established length at the top of Zone 2 as the starting length for the transition. Cut flat to the center part. Section vertically in front of the established guide. Take basic and easy to control sections. Follow the same elevation and cut along the guide connecting to the guide at Zone 2. Work all the way to the front hairline, pulling each section straight out from itself. Do not use over-direction. This haircut has a technical blend in which there is no exaggerated length increase toward the front of the head. Return to the first section cut in the transition and section vertically toward the back of the head. Cut along the guide. The vertical transition rotates around the crown. The sections remain vertical in this rotation as you reach the section behind the ear at the opposite side of the head. Always connect to the guide from the previous section as well as the length in Zone 2. High facet vertical transitions are used for creating length that is similar to the top of Zone 2. Always secure the hair with your fingers pointing down. This will ensure that the length in Zone 2 is identified and connected to that length. Continue with vertical sections from the center part all the way to the front hairline. The fourth step of the men's work method is connect the top. Take a side-to-side section in front of the crown and cut square in Zone 4, the top of the head. Elevate straight up and connect high only in Zone 4 for a slightly longer top than the transition and narrower sides. For a shorter top and wider sides, cut shorter, extending into Zone 3. Take basic, easy-to-control sections, pulling each section straight up and connect to the guide across Zone 4. Pull each section straight up from the head. Do not over-direct at the front. The final step of the men's work method is Step 5, detail and finish. In this step, apply the finishing applications of the haircut, refining the hairline, adding secondary shape techniques for support and texture, and styling with American Crew products. Set the sideburn at a classic length at the center to top of the ear. Taper the bottom of the sideburn for a lean and seamless shape. All haircuts in the Mathematic collection require a high-quality tight finish at the hairline. For Ben, reduce the comb size to a barber comb and the blade size to a 0.00. Take the hairline to a short and visually balanced result. Notice that when working around the ear, the clipper is used with pivots angled away from the head. Always work with a tapering or graduating angle. The barber comb is the ultimate refining tool to get the shortest length possible along the hairline. Use a freehand technique to create a fluid, low taper at the very bottom of the hairline. Use fanning over comb to blend the transition area between the hairline taper and the previously established internal shape. For freehand fanning, you may stretch the skin so there is a tight base against the head. This will allow the blade to dust the edge off of the bottom hairline. Use a combination of fanning and freehand techniques to adapt a quality taper to the natural growth patterns with balanced scalp exposure. Tapering the hairline is a technical and visual process. Some hairlines have variances in length and shape. Often, you will create the shape of the hairline by balancing the degree of scalp exposure from hairline to the interior, as well as the shape of the hairline across the neckline. Each hairline will offer a unique set of circumstances. Forced placement and cutting with angles around the ear and along the entire hairline will create a menswork taper that is not blocked off. Always check the sideburns for balance from side to side. For the Mathematic collection, keep classic sideburn lengths in the center to upper ear length. Add a taper to the sideburn as well for a lean finish. Begin creating a wave that moves to the front center. Use the razor and cut from the side to the center at the mid-shaft. Cut a simple angle from mid-shaft to ends in a very large, isolated area, opposite the initial cut. Enter the hair further in from the last point of entry and exit toward the center of the hair. Repeat the same secondary shape application, extending the wave toward the very front. Test the hair in reaction to the cutting application. Continue using razor techniques to support the wave in the front until satisfied. The angle on one side will be more elongated or simple, while the angle on the opposite side will cut across the section. Return to Zone 3 and the entire interior of the top with slide cutting in the location of support. Cut for an anti-gravity result with separation at the back. Use American Crew Ultra Matte for a long-lasting elevated style with a matte finish. Apply the product from scalp to ends, assisting the elevated style. Use the Mason Pearson brush to add elevation to the entire shape with wave at the front hairline. Use American Crew Boost Powder for a dramatic, gravity-defying texture with a matte finish. Shake the boost powder into strategic areas for added elevation and separation. Use American Crew Moisturizing Shave Cream for normal to coarser hair types. Work the moisturizing shave cream into the skin below the hairline. Shave away the unwanted neck hair below the hairline. Do not cut into the previously established taper at the perimeter. Stretch the skin for better tension, resulting in a cleaner shave. Use American Crew Post-Shave Cooling Lotion for moisturizing shave relief. Apply as a moisturizing and soothing agent. This is our model for Rick, the medium haircut in the Mathematic collection. Begin the haircut with the standard horseshoe-shaped parting, separating the top half of the head from the bottom. This is the first step in the 5 steps of the men's work method. Establish the basic head shape, step 2 of the men's work method, by creating a low taper in the bottom of zone 1. Use an all-purpose comb and one blade. At the center of zone 1, the region below the round of the head, change the angle of the comb to create a square layer. Create a low taper in the bottom half of zone 1. Flatten the comb at the center of zone 1 to create a square layer for the rest of the panel. Angle the base of the comb along the hairline behind the ear. After each cut across the comb, adjust the comb to move gradually toward the typical position in which the teeth are parallel to the panel. Keep a low tapered angle with the comb along the hairline. Follow the guide on the right side of the comb, staying attentive to the shape difference between zones 1 and 2. The zones expand as you reach the back of the head. Mimic the angle of the comb to elongate the bottom half of zone 1. Change the angle of the comb toward the center to top of zone 1 to create a square shape. The change of the cutting angle should occur well below the occipital bone. Zone 2 will begin at the occipital region when you reach the widest part of the head. Be mindful to offer a dramatic change in the angle of the comb without cutting into the occipital bone. Although no weight line will exist and the visual detail is blended, the silhouette shows a change from a low taper to a high taper. Only change the angle of the comb when moving to the top of zone 1. Then keep the comb locked in at the new angle. Hold the comb in a C shape to allow stability when working up the panel and pivots when changing angles. When working with a clipper, you will typically work with combinations of low tapers and high tapers. Where you place the change of the angle will determine the change in shape. Head shape, length, and style will help you determine where to place the change of that angle. Brick is classic in its foundation. The dramatic quality stems from using the classic elements of the basic head shape with changes that remain visual yet blended. Use a combination of cutting across the comb by combing the hair against the growth or cutting in a graduated angle along the hairline around the ear. Move the comb along the hairline until it reaches the typical placement in a vertical panel. Keep in mind the original shape at the opposite side of the head. Although a guide exists in the previous section, visual balance is the final goal.